going down in Pasadena, California, in the Rose Bowl, New Year's Day, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. It's the Ohio State Buckeyes as the 2-point favorite over the Oregon Ducks. The over-under is set at 54.5. This number is ticked up. The line has moved a little bit from what I had seen. I think these were opening numbers here. But anyway, we all remember this game from earlier in the season, guys. Oregon wins it 32-31. Came down to a very dramatic ending. Ohio State kind of, I guess you could say, kind of screwed the pooch at the end of the game that possibly could have given them a chance to be able to win that game there at the end, kick a field goal, and weren't able to do that. Jeremiah Smith gets the penalty, backs the team up. Time runs out. Game over. Oregon wins. Great game for Oregon. It was hosted there in Eugene. This one is obviously, as I said, going to be in Pasadena on New Year's Day. Both of those offenses played amazing in that game, Mason. If you go back and you watch it, it was really the 2 turnovers by Ohio State that kind of wasted possessions for them and handed the ball back over to Oregon, obviously, that I think was possibly the difference in that game. Whenever you're talking about a 1-point game, obviously handing the ball over a couple of times could definitely be the difference there. But both teams had about 500 yards offense, over 300 yards passing, over 100 yards rushing. It was a healthy outing for both offenses. Which of these defenses can step up a little bit more in this game? And Oregon stepped up and got the turnovers, but like I said, I mean, about 1,000 yards of offense in this game the first go-round. I find it interesting the over-under is set at 54.5. I'd like somebody to explain to me why we think there's going to be less points scored in this matchup with the teams being, I guess, maybe more familiar with one another. Does that give the defense an edge? I don't know how that really works. Because wouldn't it give the offense an edge too? I don't know. You let me know in the comment section. Because obviously I've seen this game already and it went over. So over is an obvious play to me here. And it didn't just go over by 1 or 2 points here. It went over by several, almost a touchdown, basically over a touchdown. So food for thought. But another thing here is it's funny how Ohio State is now a 2.5-point favorite after losing by a point the first go round. As I said, this is a neutral site versus playing that game in Eugene. Which Ohio State team shows up here, Mason? Is it the one that we just saw in Columbus? Because if it's them, give me them. If it's that team, give me that team. Because they played with their hair on fire. They looked a lot like they looked in the 2022 college football playoff against Georgia, right? Or I guess 2022. That's what they look like. A team with their hair on fire, a team that was pissed off at the world, Ohio versus the world or the world, whatever. You know the whole mantra, right? This team played with outside of their whole caricature that they've made up of themselves throughout the season. That's not what I expected to see. We went from the Michigan approach of we're going to cram it down your throat and prove a point to, oh, yeah, we also have multiple first-round wide receivers that we can utilize at any point, especially if you decide that you're going to, try to cover them one-on-one, which Tennessee did for whatever reason. Bad decision, right, in hindsight. So I'm interested to see which Ohio State team is it that shows up here. Are we seeing more Jeremiah Smith and Egbuka playing like they did because they were downright uncoverable the other night? Which is the whole reason I say, why did Tennessee not have more safety help? Nobody knows. And the rest is history. Your season is over, Tennessee. But I think this one comes down to special teams and turnovers, Mason. And I know that sounds cliche. Ohio State did not have an amazing day. They didn't do a ton of special team stuff in that game, but they didn't have an amazing day special teams wise against against Tennessee at home there. I'm interested to see, can you level up a little bit? It was very cold, and I know kicking is much tougher in the cold. Even though I am from the South, I can't understand that. Which team can limit the blunders, right? We talked about Ohio State. They fumbled the ball twice, lost 2 fumbles the first go round. who can play mistake-free football. I think we're in for an absolute treat here. This game goes either way. I'm not betting any money on the spread. If I'm betting on this game, I'm betting the over right now. We're going to talk more about this thing as it gets a little bit closer. But as of right now, I feel like Ohio State, do they have momentum? Does it feel like Ohio State has some momentum? There was a point last year where Michigan, I can't remember what game it was now, but I remember at one point last year, towards the end of the season, I said, damn, I think it's their year. And there was a moment this past week where I was like, wow, okay, it might be Ohio State's year if they can replicate this performance. What are your thoughts going against the Ducks for the second time, this time in the Rose Bowl?
Few overarching thoughts. First of all, this idea that it's tough to beat the same team twice, I think is just out the window. We saw Georgia do it just recently, like we have. I know it's a one game sample size, but I don't really put any stock in that. Secondly, just kind of broadly speaking, I think we could really realistically be watching the national championship being played in this game in the quarterfinals. I really do think it's that big. Whoever wins this game is going to be the odds-on favorite to win the national title, and I think that's just a fact. That's not even my opinion. I think that that's an absolute fact. Um, Looking at what Ohio State did this past week, and it just kind of reminds us of what college football really is. You really don't know what you're going to get week in and week out, right? If we see the same version of Ohio State play Oregon that we saw last week, I'm totally with you, Mark. I would take Ohio State. If you can guarantee me that you're going to see that team take the field and play against Oregon in the Rose Bowl, give me Ohio State. Give me Ohio State to cover 2.5. I think without a doubt, I'm putting my money on that. But we don't know that that's going to happen, right? If you tell me that Oregon is going to play defense like they have all year, and their offense is going to play like they did against Penn State, I might take Oregon. Um, to me, I think that this Oregon offense right now, with the way that they're playing, with the way that they played in the Big Ten championship game, with the way that they've played since Tez Johnson came back, I think this is the best offense in the country right now. At least in the playoff in the college football playoffs. I think that Oregon has the best offense. Their defense is extremely fast. However, I'm interested to see how they match up with the receivers for Ohio State in this matchup. Did a pretty good job of covering them. I don't think that Will Howard in the first game was playing to the level that he's playing at right now. And that could be a difference in this game. But I'm anxious to see if Oregon's going to be able to cover these receivers, in particular Jeremiah Smith. He was obviously a big part of the game plan just a few days ago in the game. In their last game against Tennessee, it seemed like Jeremiah Smith was being targeted early and often and all throughout the game. I would venture to guess that he's a huge part of the game plan this week, or maybe they feature Egbuka a little bit more and have Jeremiah Smith out there as a decoy. They've got options, and that's kind of my point. I think that they are going to exploit the weaknesses in the secondary for Oregon, in particular the middle of the defense. That's kind of been their really their only Achilles heel for the most part on defense is their safety play. It just hasn't been great. They're not deep at that position, so maybe you see some shots being taken across the middle of the field. But I will say this: uh, Oregon's defense, they're very fast, and the DBs are very opportunistic. If you give them the opportunity to get an interception, they're probably going to take it, and they're probably going to get an interception, turn the ball over, and then they're scoring. Dylan Gabriel's very good at taking those opportunities and turning it into 7 points. Like, they don't miss those opportunities very much. They're very good in the red zone. And when their defense gives them some points that they can go out and get, they take advantage of it, and that's one of the reasons they're undefeated right now. So I, I think I think you'll see Will Howard stretch the defense a pretty good bit. I'm also wondering if we're making a little bit too much out of Ohio State's win against Tennessee. That game was at home for Ohio State. You could tell the entire team was juiced up for that game, um, and for good reason. But how do they play in a neutral site? And how did they play against a team that is noticeably better than Tennessee, noticeably better than a Tennessee team that was playing on the road, which they haven't played great on the road all year? Now we're on a neutral site. Oregon is a step up from Tennessee. They've got a quarterback who has played 5 times as many games in college football as Nico has, and I think that that's a huge difference. His experience it'll show in this game. They have way better receivers than Tennessee has, and really a better defense as a whole. I think. I like the guys up front for Tennessee. If we're comparing the two teams. Um, I like the guys up front for Tennessee, but I like the defense as a whole and the speed that they have for Oregon more. I don't I don't have a prediction yet, Mark. We'll save that obviously for a little bit closer to game time. There, we'll get back on and give our full predictions. But ultimately, I think I'm leaning. I think I'm leaning Oregon right now. I know everybody's high on Ohio State after that performance. I just wonder if it was a little bit of fool's gold, to be honest with you, Mark. And um, we saw we saw the home team win in dominant fashion for the entirety of the first round. I think that momentum means so much in college football. I'm wondering if 4 years from now, if we're still playing playoff games at home sites, if the win percentage is not like 80% or something extremely high. Um, I think that had a big factor in the game against Tennessee and why they won so decisively. Not, I think Ohio State wins even if they play at Neyland with the way that they were playing, but I'm not putting too much stock in that win, and I'm not willing to say that Ohio State should be favored in that game. I think it's more of a pick 'em right now. So for that, I think I'm leaning towards Oregon at the moment, just kind of fading the public opinion on Ohio State and going with the Ducks, a team that we've already seen win this game.
I think you're onto something there as far as betting the spread on this one. I think you'd have to be crazy to do it, guys. I'll just be honest with you. As I said, this game can go either way, just like the first game could have gone either way. And I think this one truly could come down to whoever has the football last, or whichever defense can make a stand at the end of this game. It's going to be a good one. I can't wait to see it. I'm Oregon has got a ton of upside. I think you're right, is the best offense in the country. I think Ohio State has got one of the best defenses in the country. Um, so we'll see. We'll see. Can Oregon shore up that run defense in this one? It can allow Ohio State to run wild. There's a lot of factors here. We're going to talk about it as we get a little bit closer to New Year's Day. This is going to be a real good one there in the Rose Bowl. Y'all come hang out with us this week as we'll make our minds up as we get a little closer.